Greetings, Inquisitor. Welcome to the Holocron. This is the week 64 update for the Darth Loquitur account. I update this account's progress every week. We go through all of the character upgrades, plans for the future, things I'm planning to do, and you can follow along. In this week's update, I plan to spend a lot of time talking about taking characters to Gear 13 and putting relic levels on them. It's a question that comes up over and over in the channel. Again, it seems like I relic pretty efficiently, and people want to know how it is that I do it. There are some other holocrons in the channel about how to efficiently relic a character. There's also a holocron where I show everything that I did on this Loquitur account for an entire week. You can see all the shop buys, all of the priorities that I set on gear, and how I acquired what I did within that week. So those are some resources for you to look at if you're curious. But let's just kind of go over the strategy again for anybody who may be new or just starting out with this idea. So I do 3 layers of building. The top layer of building, my main project for the account, I will always state in terms of a relic project. So it's either taking a character that's currently at Gear 13 to a higher relic level, or getting a character to Gear 13 in the first place. That sets up how I'm using my shop currency and fleet energy mainly, and that's going to be the focus for the period of time that I have that goal set. Conquest, I've had questions. How do I spend my Conquest currency? So let me break that down into 3 parts very quickly. First, if you're in hard mode and you would need to buy the character shards in order to get that character unlocked within 3 rounds. Let's say you're free to play, you can get the red box, and you could purchase those character shards for the Conquest currency and get it in 3 rounds, and it's a character that you really want, then you should buy those shards. If you're okay to wait until the second round, remember you'll still get that same character in the box and in rewards for the second round of Conquest, the next set of 3 conquests that come out. So for people in hard mode, you can almost always unlock that character within 2 rounds of Conquest. So if you're not in a hurry to get it, then you should not be spending that currency on the shards. Instead, look for the vendor that sells the Gear 13 Plus pieces especially, or basically any of the gold pieces that are used for taking a character to Gear 13. For the left-hand side pieces, it's 12 of the Conquest currency per piece, and for the right-hand side, the Gear 13 Plus, it's 15 currency per piece. Either one of those is an exceptional value. I like the Gear 13 Plus pieces because they're a little bit more difficult for me to acquire. The way that I run my accounts, I'm always short on those fleet-generated pieces. So I focused my Conquest spending on the Gear 13 Plus. That's the furnaces, the HoloLenses, the detonators, things like that you're using to get characters to Gear 13. And again, if you're in hard mode and you don't really care to get the character unlocked, even if you could, you can still wait till the second round to unlock it and use your currency for Gear 13. There's no better value in the game right now for that Gear 13 pieces than buying it out of Conquest. Cantina energy goes exclusively to signal data. So when I'm working on relicing a character, I'm just farming signal data. I'm not going to be farming another Cantina character. If I do decide to farm a Cantina character for a week or 2, then typically what I'm going to do is back off on my expectations to either relic a character or take another character to high relic, unless I have a lot of signal data stored up in the bank. The second layer of building is shard farming for the next project. So in these updates, you'll see I'm always talking about my farming plan for the next week, and the things that are in that farming plan are usually for the next project. They're often not for the current project that I'm working on, maybe 1 or 2 characters, but generally if you're always farming for the next project, then you're working on your current project with characters that are already at 7 stars. So you don't want to be fighting to get 7 stars at the same time you're fighting to relic characters. Those timelines just tend to not work out very well. So if you look back at my updates, toward the end when I was finishing up the Sith Eternal Emperor farm, I still had 3 or 4 characters left to take to relic level. and I'd already moved on to farming clones and farming gathering shards for characters on the JMK journey. I decided that I was going to do that and already started planning it out ahead. Similarly, I'm 5 months away from getting my JMK or more, and I've already started planning out the next big project, which for me will be Jedi Master Luke. So I'm already acquiring shards for those characters and working on getting those out of the shops and getting those to 7 stars where I can. For example, Hermit Yoda and Wampa. The third layer of building is all the characters in between. So it's characters anywhere between 5 and 7 stars. Maybe they're characters that I'm still working on gathering stars for, but I'm actively trying to bring their gear levels up. So within the journey guide, you have to bring the character to gear 12 before you can get it to Relic. Now, if I finish a Relic project and I don't have my next character finished to gear 12, then I can't start my next Relic project when I'm done with it. So while I'm working on that Relic project, I'm also actively working on at least one character to get to gear 12. So there's always a clear priority for me. Journey characters, for example, if I'm doing a Galactic Legend, or if I'm on a journey that I need to Relic characters for, those are going to get the priorities over everything else. Other characters may get a priority for a specific reason. You all know I like fleets, ships, everything about it. So I'm going to also prioritize pilots very frequently over other characters. I will sometimes prioritize a character like Queel, who I use to stabilize and support my bounty hunter team. Newt, who's a monster in 3v3s, and we eventually want to relic him just to be annoying in 3v3. So there are some characters that I'll pick that I'll specifically target and try to get their gear levels up. But the priority should always be on a character that you want to relic next. Once you get that character stabilized, then you can look for other gear. And I found this routine of going into the account once per week and actually applying the gear can be pretty valuable. You'll also see when I have a character like this that's picked out and prioritized, I will lock down the gear right away for the next tier. So when I've actively picked a character to be relicked, I'll start locking down gear 13 pieces. When it's a character that I know that I want to level to gear 12, I'll quickly lock in the pieces for the next level. If you look across my account, you'll see almost every character at the specific gear level has no additional gear applied. It's just sitting there with all 6 gear slots open, waiting to be fully upgraded. But for the characters that I've picked, that I'm targeted, that I'm focusing, I do lock down the gear pieces to guarantee that I don't use them accidentally somewhere else. And then I move on to the lower priority characters. So watch for that in these account reviews. You'll see this method used over and over again. I'll start with the relic target. I'll work on that target. I'll go next to the priority targets and I'll get whatever upgrades I can get on them. And then I'll go and I'll look for other targets. And then you'll see me at the end sometimes scroll through even characters that are, down below, not even in favorites, just to see if there's anything down there that's free for gear that I can pop up. When I'm working on low-level gears and starting new characters, sometimes you get stuck at a really low gear level, like gear 6 or 7. And you're going to see that in today's update. I get stuck at a real low gear level on a couple of these characters. And it's because of this Mark II HoloLens. So what I'll do then, instead of going to try to farm that Mark II HoloLens and get those built up, I'll make that my guild request for the week. A lot of people in the guild don't have too much of a problem giving up this low-level gear, and somebody out there has plenty of these pieces. So I'll make that my gear request for 3, 4, 5 days, stock up on that piece, and then I'll be able to, do those low-level gear upgrades again. And by being very patient with it, not going to rush to farm, and being patient with the guild requests, that allows me to still use my energy only for the things that I have targeted. Chirotechs, bayonets, the cybernetics that I like to farm off of Darkside 9C, I believe. So there's certain nodes that are very good for farming the gear that will always bottleneck you, and you don't want your energy being distracted and being used by other stuff. There's also So in this 3 layers of building, just you've got to understand, you must get that character to gear 12. If you've already got a gear 12 character waiting, then you can focus. Like right now, I have several gear 12 characters in my journey guide that I can work on. So I don't have to force one to gear 12. I can work on Shakti, who is one of the characters that I would like to relic early on, but I've sort of missed that window with getting her relic early because she has some very difficult gear tiers with a lot of chirotechs. So we can work her up now in the background, and if I work through these other gear 12s and I still don't have Shakti to gear 12, then you immediately need to shift the focus and figure out how to get one of those characters to gear 12. So just realize if it takes you 2 or 3 weeks to close out a character from gear 12 to relic, in that same 2 or 3 weeks, you should be able to move a character from gear 10 to gear 12. As long as you've picked that character and you don't put the gear on other characters and give away the stuff that character needs, you can't have everything. So you need to clearly have your next gear 12 character that you're working on, as well as your relic target that you're working on. You do have to support the fill gear with shop buys. So on my main account, I have a little more freedom with my crystals. It's a little better developed, and I can make a little better use of the shop. On the Loquitur account, I'm typically, right now, I'm in a farming routine with a lot of hard nodes, so I don't have a whole lot of extra crystals left over. I try to stay flexible with my cantina energy, where last week I had an influx of crystals. We had some extra crystals come in from guild events and things like that. So I was able to do more refreshes in the cantina, and I was able to make a couple purchases out of the shop for the cat shards that I'm trying to do. Each time the Conquest runs, I'm trying to do at least 3 purchases of cat shards to make sure that I can get cat roughly on a timeline where I can get JMK unlocked. So we're doing pretty well over there. I think I have 276 cat shards. So we're just pushing forward slowly a bit at a time. But then with the crystals that are left over, you can make smart decisions. And there's stuff in the shop that only costs 15 crystals per shard. Now, I'm not going to go into all the math, but just, trust me when I say that if you can buy a piece of gear at 15 crystals per piece, per scrap, or whatever you want to call it, that is going to be actually more efficient than trying to farm it. So if you spend 50 crystals on a refresh, you may not get 3 or 4 pieces of that material. And you have to get over 3 pieces for that particular farming run to pay out more than 3 of the pieces. I hope that makes sense. So 3 of the piece cost 45 crystals, and a 50 crystal refresh often won't get 3 pieces. And remember, these are coming on top of, you're already doing the 50 crystal refreshes anyway every day, probably, okay? So if you get into the 100 crystal refreshes, it's always going to be worth it to buy this gear out of the shop. So once per week, what I do on my main account, what I do sometimes on the Loquitur account, I'll go into the weekly shipments and I'll look for specifically the 6 pieces of gear that I know that cost 15 crystals per shard. And on my main account especially, I work on a bank, and I try to make sure that I have 100 of those pieces in the account so that that's never a bottleneck for me. And again, I'm spending on that account, so that comes more easily. Mark III holo projectors you can buy completed. Sometimes they have 1 for 300. Sometimes they have 2 for 600. That comes out to 15 crystals per shard. It's a good value. These are good to farm off of light side node 9F, I think, has these in it along with the bayonets and the Mark 8 bio. So there's a good node for farming these if you're behind on them and you can spend the energy to farm. But if you just need one of them to level up a character or something like that, grabbing one of these completed for 300 crystals is a good deal. The Mark 9 data pads over here. Now be careful, there's 2 different kinds of these data pads. There's kind of the black, like hollow ones, and then there's the filled in ones. These are the ones that cost 15 per shard, and you can see there 150 crystals for 10 shards. That's a good value. You can buy those. And in the Loquitur account, occasionally, very occasionally, like right here, if I needed that specific gear for a character that I wanted to level up, I have 43, 150 crystals. I could have 53. That's not a bad deal. I'm good to go ahead and spend that and finish that gear piece out. Again, on my main account, I'm looking for a bank of 100, so I would buy whatever I found there until I get to 100. The Mark V med pack, again, that like black background, again, 150 for 10. The Mark V detonators, 150 for 10. You can get these completed Mark IV computers. Now, those sometimes are a bottleneck when you're starting an account. So if you're a newer player and you get jammed up on these things and you don't have a good node to farm it, these can be bought efficiently. I don't think they show up every time, and it's a completed item that shows up for 300, and it takes 20 of them to craft this. So it's a pretty good bargain. Again, I wouldn't buy it unless you're early game and you really, that's your bottleneck. These Mark 8 bios are 150 for, again, 15 per shard. Rarely have to buy those anymore since the gear changes. Now those are available to us. And typically you'll have enough of those to go around now. But if you were desperate to close out a project again, anything that cost 15 per shard is pretty good. So that's a little intro. Again, let's recap. So it's 3 layers. You have a relic character that you're working on. You have the projects that you're working on for the future where you're gathering shards. And you have the characters in between that you're filling in using either farms or shop currency, or sometimes buying some of this stuff with crystals so that you don't have to farm it. Okay, with that in mind, I've had this question before. Well, okay, if I'm supposed to buy that gear out of the shop, if it's good to buy that gear, and I have 300 crystals, should I do 3 Cantina refreshes, or should I go ahead and buy the holo projector? So this is as simple as it can be. If you look at the top, that's my main account. I've built up a big bank of signal data. I'm able to relic whatever characters I want to whatever level I want because I've set my target for my bank at 500. So I constantly am looking to have tons of signal data. So no, in that case, you shouldn't do Cantina refreshes. You should spend it in the shop and make your farms easy. If you look at the bottom, you'll see that's my Loquitur account. I'm short on all kinds of signal data. And here you can see the green, whatever my target is, I need 25 of that green signal data for the next level on that relic target. So yeah, no, I mean, well, I actively need signal data for my current relic project, then I can't spend those crystals in the shop. And then yes, you should do the Cantina refreshes. So it's as simple as that. You should be looking to do 3 mod refreshes, 3 regular energy refreshes, and 3 fleet if you can. And with the crystals that are left over, you should focus on Cantina until you get signal data built up. If you have a bank of signal data, then you can flex those crystals to shopping for those pieces. And that's why I say on the Loquitur account, in some cases I've been able to buy some of that gear. But usually I just would convert that to Cantina refreshes for more signal data. All right, with that in mind, let's go through the account progress for the week, and hopefully you'll be able to see this idea demonstrated in practice. So, as usual, first thing we're going to do within this review is we're going to take a look at our relic target. Now, we had targeted Yoda for Relic 8 in week 65. That was our target for last week. So, for the whole week, I farmed up the holo lenses, and I really like farming the holo lenses for this conversion to Zinbittle cards, and that's mainly because it also comes with the Mark VI syringes. We'll talk about that more in a minute. I've got 104 Electrium conductors, but I really want to convert some more of those. And right now I have a character that uses this chrono that doesn't show up on a lot of characters. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to target this piece, and I'm going to go find Queel. and I'm going to go ahead and combine this. Now I buy that purple stuff out of the shard shop. We've talked about that before. I've gotten all of those gold pieces just from the game, from rewards. So I can take that, and I can take one of the cybernetics, and I can convert 26 more and end up with 130. Now, I don't necessarily need that many, but I like to keep a stock of those. So I farmed up 121 of these over the last week. That's pretty good. Now, you see on these detonators, they don't have a tag up in the upper left corner, so I don't actively need that piece right now on one of the characters that I'm working on for the project. Now, that doesn't mean that like Shakti or some future character gets to gear 12 that I won't need it. But within, the few characters that I have right now, Qui-Gon Jinn, I think Clone Sergeant is at gear 12, and I think maybe Cad Bane's at gear 12. So I have like 3 characters out of the journey. None of them actively need that. So I decide at this point to go ahead and convert 30 of those as well to Zimbital cards. Once I get these 30 Zimbital cards, that's going to be enough. That's what I need for Relic 8. Now I go in here in the impulse detectors. I did farm up some bayonets. And I'm just looking here, and I'm close. I'm at 8. And if I just scrap everything I have for all 3 of these materials, just run it all in, I actually get 10 impulse detectors. So that puts me on target for Relic 8 right now. So I just go ahead and dump it all. And that does mean that for other characters, I'm going to have to refarm it later. But that's fine, right? When those characters are on the current project, I'll farm those materials up if I need it. Meanwhile, I get the impulse detectors that I need. So here we take Yoda to Relic 6. Here we get 7. And here you'll see the materials line up quite nicely for 8. We get everything we need. And up to 8 we go. Now we're looking for that quest completion. There it comes. Grandmaster Yoda, upgrade to Relic 8. All right, so that puts us on track for our Relic project a week ahead. So we were actually able to get Yoda. But it did require sacrificing some detonators, and it required sacrificing some materials for the impulse detectors that we really hadn't planned to use. But okay, we've got him running at 11,000 special damage and 283 speed, so he's okay. He doesn't have the best of the best mods, but he's got pretty good mods. Probably what I would say B-tier mods. So pretty good. So he should be fit to try to do some work. We've used him under Qui-Gon a couple times, and he's been pretty fun. All right, Shakti, remember, she's our secondary target. She's the character that we're really looking to get to gear 12. We're able to put a couple gear tiers on her this time. Now, when I look at my shock prods here, I do need shock prods for Qui-Gon Jinn, and if I want to run him as my next relic, which seems logical, I will have to save 100 of those shock prods. So at this point, we have, a good week's worth of farming on Qui-Gon Jinn to get him to relic level, so we're not going to commit any of those Kairos to Shakti quite yet. We're going to take a look for some other characters here that we want to level up within the journey guide. So again, we take a look at Bo-Katan, and guess what? She's waiting on Kairos. We're not going to commit to Kairos. So she's going to be waiting on that gear tier as well. And she'll be waiting behind Shakti because, again, Shak's going to get her Kairos before Bo-Katan gets her Kairos. Now, watch out for these Mark 6 syringes. You saw me kind of circling it with the mouse there because I'm aware that those are now, with the new gear system, while you're leveling characters up from 1 to whatever gear tier, those get used quite frequently. And we have to farm a lot of those Mark 12 HoloLenses in order to, because the syringes come off the same node as the HoloLenses. So then we can work on Zimbital card materials at the same time that we're getting those Mark 6. And here you can see we have 145, and we need them a couple places. Cody doesn't have the upgrade button lit up, so he needs another set of those syringes somewhere. So we're looking at this. And what you do sometimes, you see how many characters need it down in the bottom. So if you look, we can see all the characters that need this piece of gear. We can go ahead and equip it here because there's not another character that's critical for us right now that needs it. So we can get Cody everything except these hypo syringes. So we'll go ahead and lock him in on gear. And again, he's not a high priority target, but we already understand that we have to wait on those Mark 6 syringes. So we'll lock his syringes all down and then, focus in this next week on farming those HoloLenses. We need them for Qui-Gon Jinn to get to Gear 13, so we'll get enough of him to go to the next gear tier. Jedi Knight Revan, we'll put another gear tier on him. That unlocks this hero skill. We'll level up the hero skill. And again, our Revan is very low level, but we've deprioritized him. With Qui-Gon Jinn and the Omicron coming to the game, I don't need to hurry as much to get Revan up and running as the leader. He can just go into the Qui-Gon team and we're fine. We get another gear tier on Vandor Chewbacca, and he's held up also by those Mark 6 syringes. So everybody needs those things now. So that takes away most of the green pluses that we have, and we're not going to get a whole lot more gear upgrades out of this. The Armorer is now double drops, and we have her as a project. In order for Sith Eternal to consistently beat SLKR, we need the armor in the team. We're going to slow roll her since we're low on credits. We only have 4.3 million credits here, you see, so we're going to take her up to 72. Now we're stuck on this Mark II HoloLens, and you see instantly that becomes my request for the week. That's the first low gear tier piece that I found that's roadblocking me. So we'll just go ahead and throw that in as a request. We won't work on skills or anything yet. We're just putting a little effort into her. TIE Fighter pilot, we do want his ship eventually for our Empire fleet. We're kind of passively working on him. So we put a 5th star on him. That's nice. He needs some gear tiers here in the future. We do need to work on this Gauntlet Starfighter also. That was the last ship that we really wanted to build for our little push into Chromium. And we more or less failed at this. I thought we'd be able to get these characters to a little better situation, but you can see I'm only going to be able to get them, mid levels and, some low gear tiers. They're also going to be held up with that exact same piece. They run out, and they need the same Mark II lens. So we'll get those, and we'll free those characters up for next week. We can get the Gauntlet Starfighter. For some reason, I was thinking that I had enough to get to 5 stars on this ship, but it's 2 shards short of hitting 5 stars. I needed 145. I guess I only had 143. So I give it a little spin there in frustration. Think about taking it up all the way, but I put it at 77. That's 3 million credits. That's about half of what I have in the bank. It gets that ship started. You can see it's only 4865 galactic power, so it's a pretty terrible ship right now. And that's mostly because the characters are really low level and low gear tier. So we need a lot more effort. We will use this as a reinforcement at first, so we're going to look to upgrade this reinforcement ability. And it has to be 85 to get the second upgrade on the reinforcement ability, so we're just stuck here with kind of a garbage ship for now. But you got to start somewhere, so we'll throw some credits at it. We'll put it on the favorites, and we'll start cooking. And then week by week, we'll see if we can put some more effort into it. Hyena Bomber gets the 5th star. Not very impressive, but at 5 stars, it's fairly functional. So we're going to go ahead and upgrade this skill, and the base skills are all maxed. We're not going to work on the reinforcement ability because that's almost always going to be a starting ship anyway. We're going to get this Vulture droid going. We've got it to 5 stars. We need to get the Discord missile up and running if we can. That's getting the Discord missile to 8 is pretty important. Now, the reason I didn't do it here is because I'm really low on shipbuilding materials. If you look, we're we're under 1 million on shipbuilding materials at this point. So we don't need tier 8 there because we don't have other droid ships yet that we're looking to get assists out of with the reinforce. Maybe the Hyena bomber would be in there, so maybe we could invest in that in the near future. But for right now, just kind of trying to do what we can here. We are going to use this as a reinforcement while it's so weak. So we go ahead and pop it up to the level where it gets blinds. And that's okay. And then it'll be a starting ship for the Malevolence for a long time thereafter. All right, we're taking a look at Plo here. And we could put the premium skill on him. We do need to get Plo as a character in better shape. So we're still stuck at tier 5 on inspiring power. So yeah, we'll take a look at Plo here, but he's going to be hung up on another same exact piece, the Mark II HoloLens. So next week, if we get some of those, we can take Plo up a level. We can take Garsax in the Super Commando. There's a bunch of characters that we'll be able to upgrade. So we get the galactic power up to 2.59 million. And that's going to be pretty much where we're going to lock it in for Grand Arena next week. So that's the whole update. Quite a bit of work, but again, it's the last bit of work that we do before the lock-in for Grand Arena, so quite a bit to do. All right, so week 64, 2.59, we added 50,000 galactic power. Again, we added a ship. We added a couple more characters. We started the armor, the Garsax, and the Super Commando. 37 Zetas, Sea and Water still getting us top 50 in Squad Arena, and Negotiator still getting us top 5. Usually second place now that we've got a Executor that showed up in the fleet. My project is to Relic Qui-Gon Jinn for next week, week 65. All right, for energy, we're going to do Vulture Droid, Hyena Bomber, BTLB, TIE Bomber, Armor, Bo-Katan. Same 6 that we've been farming for a long time. Same 6 that we're going to be farming for several weeks to come. In the fleet energy, we're just working on that Rebel Y-Wing. And that's because with the aggressive relic targets that I've set, we really need all that energy for the Gear 13 stuff. Cantina, we're working on signal data. Mod, we're still farming speed mods. Got to get caught up and get some good speed mods. I've really been on a deficit for mod farming. I really haven't seen many good mods at all. I think I've gotten a couple like 12 and 14 speed mods, but nothing has sliced into a 20 speed mod in 6 or 7 weeks now. It's really been a drought on mods, but that's the way statistics works, and I'm sure it'll catch up with me on the good side at some point. Squad Arena, we're buying Prestige 3 times a week. We're buying gear out of the bottom quite a bit and doing some conversion to Shard Shop currency. Fleet Store, working on Zetas mostly, and everything else is going to feed the Shard Shop. All right. So the question is, with those changes to the account, am I ready for Chromium? It's a good question. It's a good question. If you look at it on paper, if you were to just open up my account in Swigo.gg and review it, you would probably say, nah, that account doesn't look ready for Chromium. There's not enough good teams. The fleets aren't good enough. There's not 4 good fleets, so you're going to struggle. So on paper, it's probably a no. But I want to present to you guys my strategies and talk about, if I use the right strategy on defense, how I can potentially pull off wins in these grand arenas by cutting down the size of the grand arena to something that I can manage with the account. So here's basically several strategies that I can use. And if you think this way, potentially you can apply these strategies to your grand arena too. And it doesn't matter if you're a low-level account or a high-level account. These are some ideas. So if they have worse fleets, if I have a fleet advantage, I play a strategy that I call permission. So permission is where I put some banner-stealing teams, kind of weaker teams that will attract the opponent to want to beat in front of ships. Now, there'll still be teams that take some beating. They won't be for free, but they should be very beatable. And then on the lower side, I'll try to put teams up front that are not beatable. So if the opponent goes with a heavy defense and comes weak over on offense, they'll almost certainly take what's in front of ships, and then I'll have a strong defense on ships and potentially cut this whole Grand Arena down to a one-zone battle. You saw me do that 3 times in a row on the last series of Grand Arenas. 3 times in a row that I did this, 3 times in a row that I successfully defeated my opponent by using a strategically strong defense. So if I can block the bottom, then that back square on the bottom has no exposure. If they never get through the front, there's no exposure on the back. I can throw garbage teams back there, and that allows me to place good defensive teams up front, good defensive teams in front of ships. Again, not the best defensive teams, but for example, my Galactic Legend goes in the bottom. I put C on defense in the bottom, and then I fill the top with things like Geos and my Bounty Hunter team and things like that. And then that back wall just allows me to save a couple other good teams that I might not normally have for offense, and then I can go try to get that. Now, if they have worse fleets, but they actually have better characters on the ground, then I have to do a different kind of permission strategy where I give them permission on both of the front zones. And then again, what I'm trying to do is I'll put a whole bunch of defenses up front that bleed them out. And I'll try to put one big defense, in this example, my Galactic Legend, on the back wall. And I would put teams in front of the Galactic Legend to try to bait out their Galactic Legend. For example, if they have no Malik, but they have a Galactic Legend, I might put a really hard Padme team there. I might actually put an Empire team with Vader down in the front. And that's going to tempt them to just say, okay, I'll use my Galactic Legend here and beat that, and it's no problem. And then they get to the back wall, and there's a Galactic Legend defending the back wall, then they're stuck. And again, if they have a huge advantage in characters, but I have the advantage in fleet, then I can use this strategy. If I don't have the advantage in fleet, it won't work. But this cuts it down to 2 zones, and it relies on my opponent. I don't want to say it relies on them making a mistake, but it relies on them strategically going after the bottom front first, finding the back wall, and then having to make a decision whether they're going to clear the front wall in front of ships or the back wall. They decide to clear in front of ships to see ships, and then they're stuck on a 2-zone clear. All right, if they actually have better fleets than I do, if they've actually got 4 fleets adequately prepared, and I don't think that I have an advantage one way or another, then I can protect the top. So I'll put those defensive teams, the banner stealing teams, on the bottom. I'll make it easy to beat that bottom front. They'll see the bottom back. They'll be able to clear that, and it'll again be a 2-zone game. And I'll try to stop them up front, throw off 2 complete garbage fleets, and then save my better 2 fleets for offense. And then if I can beat their top and do better on efficiency on their bottom zones, again, it'll be good for the win. So that's how we're going to conserve our energy. And then the last scenario is if the opponent's just better than me. Just more galactic power, more fleets, more characters, and a good account, good mods. And then my only strategy is to basically play those 2 back wall defenses, knowing that I'm probably going to have to throw off on fleets as well. So for example, I talked about splitting the Malevolence fleet into the Geos and another fleet. Well, in this case, the best defense that I could put down on fleet would probably be the Geos. So I'll throw the Geos in a trash defense there and, just try to cost my opponent some banners. And then I'll take my Negotiator and my Malevolence both on offense to try to get a better efficiency wins out of my opponent. So that's a little bit the different strategies that I'll be using throughout the season of Grand Arena. Just to set my expectations, I did make a big jump from Bronzium 4 all the way up to Chromium 3. So it's a 6-division jump, which is quite a lot. So I'm planning to do flexibility and focus. I'm going to have probably a heavier defense than an offense. and plan to win without full clears. The new system allows a win in any way. I mean, as long as you have more banners, you win. So it does allow that a heavy defense can work. And if you get a few wins that are more efficient, then you beat your opponent. So things like, putting Enfys Nest on defense can be used just to force the opponent to use certain teams against Enfys Nest. Using Enfys Nest on offense will get me a high banner win on a solo or a duo with Kira. So in that way, we can be flexible with our teams and go for efficiency wins. I still consider that I probably have a fleet deficit overall. So strategies against certain opponents, if they have better fleets, are going to be limited. And that hurts me, but we'll keep working on those fleets and we'll get them in shape. But I expect a lot of people at this level are not going to have fantastic fleets, so I think we'll be fine. To be fair, I expect this season to run something like 8-4. Maybe we get promoted to Chromium 2. I don't think we'll get to Chromium 1. I don't think we'll have another 11-1 season like we did last time. But honestly, I'll be satisfied to hold Chromium 3 or get promoted to Chromium 2. I think both of those are fair. And then in the next cycle, maybe we look to push up to Chromium 1 and make it all the way up into Erodium around, let's say, 3 million galactic power or so. It's a bit of a stretch, but maybe we can do it. All right, that's going to wrap up the Holocron for this week. I know it was a long one. There was a lot of stuff in here, account building strategies, GAC strategies. So for anybody who made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate y'all. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe. We're doing a drive to try to get more subscribers. So please, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. It would help me a lot. It would help the channel. And also leave comments down below. It can be any kind of comment. We love to hear from y'all. Comments drive the YouTube algorithm and help this video be suggested for more people that like Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. The more people that get over here for our content, the more inquisitors we have, the better our community will become. Join us on Discord if you haven't already. The link is in the description down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next Holocron.